Hey, everybody. This is Nate Swick. I am joined once again by our web developer, Greg Neise, to do a live bird ID question and answer. Welcome to all of you who are watching on the ABA's various social media whatnots. We are on Facebook, What's This Bird? We're on YouTube. We are on Periscope. We are in all the places where people might have questions about birds. Greg, it's September.
Hello.
We're back
Yes,
again.
it.
We're
Yes,
still
it
we're still doing
is.
this. Still doing this
Yeah,
COVID thing. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Who'd have
Fall
thought we'd
just
still be doing
decided
it in
to
the
show
fall?
up one day, and here we are.
Yeah. So how's your fall been going? It's still a little slow here, but I haven't had a chance to go out and go birding as much as I'd like to these
It's
days.
really fun here right now.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet.
We have had a very, very unusual weather system for September. Um, we've had a solid week of strong northeast winds and straight east winds coming in off Lake Michigan. And the numbers of Jaegers and other interesting birds, shorebirds on the beaches, has just
Pushing them
been
right to the shore,
astonishing.
huh?
In Lake County, Indiana, yesterday, I think they had 31 Jaegers.
That's
Um,
ridiculous.
at Miller Beach, it's ridiculous. And and little gulls and Sabin's gulls, and
All
it's
the
just been
all the
fun. And
cross
then,
continent migrants that we never get to see because they spend all their time in the air unless the wind
yep,
pushes them down.
yep. And then today, overnight, we had new birds come in, and on the lakefront parks, there's Nelson sparrows and Lacan sparrows being reported. And
Yeah.
yeah, fall has just bam, there we go. Fall migration is on.
I am jealous. We are still sitting on some heat here, although it has cooled down a lot. I was gonna get out this morning, but I have had to. This is me complaining about things that are not related to birding. We're expanding our genre here.
Yeah,
When I have to I would really like it if my kids' school would do all their live instruction like in the afternoon so that I could go birding in the morning. Instead, I kind of have to hang around here at home troubleshooting various kids' internet connections for their school. It's actually very frustrating. But
yeah.
maybe tomorrow I'll get out. I've got some stuff. I know stuff is happening. I see people reporting it. I know it's here. The warbler, the passerine migration is really starting to happen here in the southeast because the first cold front moved through a few days ago, and we're still a couple weeks away from sparrow migration, like the big sparrow push. But things are happening here, and I got to get out and enjoy it.
Yeah. The warblers are in full swing. Sparrows are just getting started. Waterbirds are moving, and it's the weather patterns have, like I said, just been across the continent, have just been really odd for September.
Yeah,
Um, and anyway,
across the continent, it's been weird. It's been odd
seriously,
September
it's
everywhere.
it's it's
Even the parts of the
late
continent that
August and
aren't on
September.
fire.
It's just yeah, jeez.
Um,
It's the pictures that I'm seeing from the West Coast are just bewildering.
they're rough.
It just
They're rough.
it's yeah.
I hope all of you who are out there
Yes,
on the
we
west half
do.
of the continent are safe and sound, and that's about all we can say. The If you have any questions about birds, bird ID, birding, anything related to birds, Greg and I will try and answer it. Please leave those questions in the comments in Facebook, Twitter, slash Periscope, and YouTube, and we will try to get to them to the best of our ability. We certainly love to talk about birds as we can. Jenny Shockley mentions it's a La Nina
Yes,
year,
and
evidently.
it is a La Nina year. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that stuff to be able to speak confidently about it. It does mean more storms in the east and more fires in the west, though. Generally
Yeah,
speaking,
generally,
is that
and
right?
they're all different. So
Right.
typically for us in the Midwest and the Great Lakes, it generally means average winter, but
Mm.
with like periods of silliness. So it'll be like just regular average winter with 10 days of intense cold,
Yeah.
followed by 10 days of like flowers blooming, and then back to winter.
That sounds pretty normal these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Global weirding. Um, I have a question already from Periscope. It comes from at Sisu Softs, who asks us, how can I attract blue jays this winter? They are a snowbird, correct? In some parts of the country, they're definitely a snowbird. I wouldn't necessarily characterize them as that year round.
Yeah.
Blue jays like nuts. Like
Peanuts.
Acorns, and I was gonna say peanuts. Exactly. You want to put peanuts out. You're feeling rich enough to put those peanuts out because they go fast. A lot of things like them, but blue jays like them a lot.
Get one of those peanut rings.
Oh, there you go.
Blue jays love those things.
Yeah, blue jays are interesting in that they are obviously extremely smart and tend to be just a little bit wary of feeding stations in my experience. Like it takes a lot to kind of get them comfortable to come down. But yeah, peanuts as
once they do,
they'll hit them and they'll eat like 5 or 6 of them at once and store them in the crop and take them to the tree and
they will take over your yard.
Yeah. So if you want blue jays, that's how you do it. So if you have any other questions, please let us know. Otherwise, Greg, as usual, I have some photos that I have pulled from the ABA's What's This Bird group, which is our bird identification crowdsource group. I'm trying to fix something while I'm talking. It's doing two things at once. So we pulled out some interesting things that are kind of indicative of the sort of birds that people are seeing here in the second week of September. So a few warblers, a few shorebirds. It's a real grab bag as things tend to be this time of year. So I'm going to go ahead and throw to that first one. Oh, before we go, we have one more question from Facebook from Dalton Adger. This is not a question that we get asked normally. He asks, my wife is 39 weeks pregnant with a little girl. Getting right to the end there. We already have a name picked out, but if I were to make a last-ditch effort to convince my wife to name our daughter after a bird, what would be some contenders?
Well, I mean, Phoebe's the first one that comes to mind.
Phoebe, I've known some birders that have named their daughter Phoebe. I have a good friend here in North Carolina who has a daughter named Wren, W-R-E-N.
That's, the very famous naturalist Redmond O'Hanlon named his daughter Puffin.
Puffin? Ooh, that's an interesting angle. Robin comes to mind. I mean, that could go for either. That's a multi-gender name. Phoebe, everyone's saying Phoebe. A lot of Phoebes in the comments. Good luck, Dalton. 39. If you haven't made that case by 39 weeks, I don't know if you're gonna make it in the last couple. So, one of my good friends, Corey Finger, has his child's middle name. His son's middle name is Shearwater, which I always thought was pretty cool. Maybe you could get a middle name. Maybe you could throw a middle name. You have a lot more leeway to be pretty creative with a middle name. It's a case I never made. My kids are not named after birds. All right, but we're gonna go to the PowerPoint presentation that I have here. Image 1, Greg, is a shorebird, and in my sort of absent-minded scrolling through the What's This Bird group, grabbing photos, this bird struck me as a different species, and then when I looked closely, I saw that I was wrong. And I'll explain sort of my process of identification. I was scrolling through, quick glance at this thing. I looked at it and I thought, "Whoa, stilt sandpiper! Look at that, the way it's standing, kind of tall. It's got that nice curved little bill." And then when I pulled it up and made it a little bit bigger and I started looking closely, I could see that this was not a stilt sandpiper. The face pattern's a little bit wrong. The legs aren't quite long enough to pull off a stilt sandpiper. And this is, in fact, from Vero Beach, Florida, a least sandpiper.
Yes, it is.
But when I see least, and we've talked about this in the past, I usually see them like really crouched and hunched over and sitting very tight on the mud with their legs bent. And this one is not doing that. It's standing up straight and tall, which is not a look that you see for least sandpiper all that often.
a couple of things too that this photo is a little bit of a fake out.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We have a couple of
because
those.
there's a few things, yeah, there's a few things going on here. One is it's got a lot of digital haze, which makes everything look grayer than it really is,
Good call.
and
Yes.
less contrasty.
Yeah,
Um,
and leaf sandpiper is a pretty contrasty shorebird, generally
they are,
speaking. Yeah, especially the young
and
ones.
and it's also in what appears to be deeper water, um, and it looks really leggy. And
Yes,
of all the ways you would describe leaf sandpiper, leggy is not something that would come to mind.
not at
They're
all.
kind of mouse-like and but not leggy. And so you'll notice on this bird's back, it's got those big black centers on the scapulars, the row of feathers along
Try
the
to blow it
top
up.
edge of the wing and on the back. And that's something that stilt sandpiper doesn't have. Stilt sandpiper is 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 more evenly gray and kind of scalloped edges on the feathers. It's not contrasty like this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this goes to show the sort of ways in which one photo can really fool you, especially if it catches the bird in a particularly odd posture or unlikely posture, as this one sort of does. So I wanted to lead with that one. I thought this was a nice photo to kind of illustrate that fact. But fall is just about sparrow season, Greg. So
Yep.
I got a sparrow next. There's a photo, for a real nice photo from southern New Hampshire. I believe that this is also sort of
So
a
just
color is
before
weird on this one as well.
before we get into this one, hey, you guys that are watching my shared feed, the video has stopped for me, and I can't tell if you can see what's going on or not. So if you guys are watching it, put a little something in the comments. Let me know that the video is working. Anyway, uh, so this sparrow, this is a fake out,
Fake
and
out.
what I'm gonna let you start with the fake out discussion here.
Um, it looks a little bluish, right? I'm not alone
Well,
in
it
thinking it's
does.
got some weird kind of blue colors on it. It is very richly colored,
It is,
which is
and
a little odd for this species.
it is, and it's but anytime you see this, and anytime you see that like bluish stuff on a bird like that, it's always the down feathers
Hmm.
poking out from underneath the
Exactly. You see
contour
that a lot this
feathers
time of year because birds
when
are
they're
molting the body feathers. Yeah.
yeah. As I explained in one of the posts in the Illinois birding group, you know, birds have different types of feathers that are arranged in tracts, and that the contour feathers, which are the feathers over the body, um, have there are down feathers underneath those, and when the bird is molting like this one is, and they're preening and rearranging it, the down feathers poke out from in between. And when the bird's in good plumage or fresh plumage, you don't see that, but here you
Hmm.
do see that.
Yeah. But there are some things that point to the bird's the identification of the bird. One, those streaks that you can see on the face and on the back are very coarse. They're very broad,
Yep.
and the tail is super long. And whenever I see a sparrow with a very long tail and extremely coarse streaking all over the body, I think song sparrow. Always song sparrow.
That's what I think too. But
Yep.
the reason I think this is a fake out
Oh,
is,
okay.
oh no, I agree with you. It's a song sparrow. But I could see people looking at the way that this bird has some color in the lores
Mm-hmm.
and not kind of paying it so much attention to that bright rufous tail,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking that this is a young white-throated sparrow.
Yeah, that's true. White-throated sparrows, yeah, especially since you can't see the throat very well, right? And white-throated
Right.
sparrow, I've seen a lot of these sort of this is Spizella genus, sort of confused. The swamp sparrow frequently gets confused for white-throated sparrow, and it's got a little bit of a shorter tail, a little more stocky profile, which is more like those zonotrichias, the white-throateds, white crowns, big chunky sparrows. But one of the things I always talk about with song sparrows is that long tail. They've got such a long tail, and when they fly, when you see them fly, which is frequently how you see them when they flush from in front of
Mhm.
you into a bush, they drag that tail along, and it almost looks like they're laboring when they're flying, and they drag a tail. It's like they pump it like foo doo foo doo foo,
Yep.
and it looks like it's really hard to pull that caboose along. So that's a song sparrow. You can tell them almost always when they're flying just by that behavior. Straight into a thorn bush.
Yep.
Yeah, always a song sparrow, says Jenny Shockley. Not always, but song sparrows do tend to fool a lot of people, especially this time of year when people start seeing the migrant song sparrows that breed, at least in the eastern part of the continent where I live. A little bit later, usually mid-October, so we start seeing those song sparrows that breed up in eastern Canada and in New England, and they are definitely much darker than the nominate subspecies, the melodia birds that we have. Melospisa, that's what they are. They're Melospisa, not Spizella.
Yeah.
The melodia birds that we have year round here in my part of the country. I don't know if that's the case where you are, Greg.
Yeah, I would say it is. And another thing, these birds are generally noisy too. When you kick one up, they tend to start to chatter at you.
Yeah, they have that real loud chirp.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another one. This is a pair of photos of the one bird taken in Memphis, Tennessee. Let's see if I can move that down.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Yeah, isn't this wild? So, this is what I like to call the most confused warbler on the planet. The most confused for warbler. Maybe if I like to call it that, I should come up with a little more quick name, but quick saying. But yeah, this is a warbler that looks like a lot of birds. A lot of different birds.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? Do you want to tackle this one? Since I've thrown it at you, you haven't looked at it.
Well, I haven't looked at it before, and it's funny. I looked at the first picture on the left, and just I'll be honest. The very first thing that came to my mind was goldfinch.
Yeah, right.
Just for a second. This bird's got it's got yellow in odd patches. It's got bright wing bars. Doesn't have any streaking on the back. It's got eye arcs. It looks like it has dark lores. The face is kind of messy. The bill looks kind of heavy. Yeah. A clue. That heavy bill that sort of in that head-on look on the left, well, both of them, like, makes you think finch, is a good clue for pine warbler, which has kind of
warbler
has a heavier bill than most other warblers.
Yeah, and I honestly cannot tell what is going on with this bird as far as plumages. Usually birds that are that plain do not turn into birds that are that bright all at once.
'Tis the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a weird look. I mean, you could think Perula because of the pattern on there, the wing bars. But as you say, the heavy bill, the long tail, that definitely rules out Perula, which does not have either of those things. But yeah, this is a pine warbler and a really janky looking one. But it does have those broad white wing bars. It does have the arcs, as you mentioned, and it's coming to a feeder, which is usually a pretty good clue for pine warbler. In my experience, pine warbler is the warbler that will most commonly come to suet, aside from yellow rumped.
And it's standing on pine needles.
And that always helps. Yeah. It's a perfect name, pine warbler.
Yeah.
Note all the pine needles, says Len Kafka. Yes. Yeah. So pine warbler, wild looking bird. I could see why the person had a little bit of trouble with this.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna throw it to you, Greg. Well, maybe I could take this one because I thought this one was really interesting too. Obviously,
it is interesting.
We have a gull here.
Yes,
and
we do.
We usually think of gulls as maybe winter identification issues. Maybe that's because we don't want to tackle them until there's absolutely nothing else going on. But this is one of those birds that I love these things because even like the last 10 years, we have seen these things explode all up and down the East Coast. And, you can see the very dark mantle. So that means it's one of the blackback gulls. And without any sort of size comparison, it can be a little bit difficult to determine which one it is, lesser or great. But, maybe if you read my lead in correctly, you'll note that this is a lesser blackback gull because that is a primarily Eurasian gull species that has in the last, not that long, 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
Just absolutely blown up on the East Coast to the extent that some parts where I live in North Carolina, you can find more lesser blackback gulls than just about any other species in some places in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. I remember in the late 70s doing a death march out to some beach in Delaware or Virginia. No, it was in Virginia at Chincoteague to try to find a lesser blackback gull. It literally, we hiked for hours to get out there to try to see this bird and didn't get it. And then a year later, finally got one in Florida that people were coming to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1980, in April, the very first one showed up in Illinois. And now, like, there's hundreds of them. Like, you go to Daytona and find hundreds of them.
Yeah. Cape Point on the Outer Banks is the same way. Triple digit lesser blackback gulls. It is a crazy thing. But when we look at lesser
let's
blackback
get back to
gull,
the ID on this one.
yeah, when we look at lesser blackback gull, for me, there's a couple things I'm always looking for. And a lot of those are sort of structural. One of those is structural, and the other one is a field mark. And the structural one is the fact that they have very long wings, especially compared to great blackback gull. Well, obviously the size difference is a huge clue because lesser blackback gulls are more like a herring gull in size, maybe a tad smaller. But you can see this bird has real long wings. Great blackback gull, not the same. And the second one is that kind of smudgy eye, that eyeliner, that dusky eye is a real good clue for lesser blackback gull and all of its immature plumages.
And even adults in the winter, you know, we'll have that kind of goth mascara look that great blackback gull never has.
Yeah.
And great blackback gull has a big white head with beady little eyes.
Yes.
And it doesn't have this kind of evil goth look that lesser blackbacks do.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing is the yellow legs.
Yellow legs. Yeah, I was just going to say, there are a couple younger plumages of lesser blackback gull where they actually do have sort of pinkish legs.
Absolutely.
But as they get older, those yellow legs start coming in, and certainly by the adult, and maybe not in August, but by February, when they're starting to look real sharp for breeding, they're just like glowing yellow, bright yellow sticks. So yeah, you can see the yellow legs here.
And two points that, you know, the sort of increasing vagrant gull that's a blackback gull, slaty-back gull.
Mm-hmm.
This bird, you know, it obviously the pink that species has pink legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has a different colored mantle. It's actually kind of a bluish slate. And it has a broader tertial crescent, which is the white feathers on the bottom part of the back above the wingtips. But it does also have that same goth mascara look in the winter.
Yeah, I'll try and make a shape here. When Greg is talking about the tertial crescent, he's talking about this little area right here. That little white line above where the primaries kind of shoot off. I'll delete that. Maybe I'll delete that. Maybe I'll just move it over here. Yeah, so lesser blackback gull. Really neat bird. I still kind of get excited when I see him, but it's funny, like they're starting to show up in the interior of the state now. With some regularity. They're still like a once every other year bird in much of the Piedmont. But, whenever there are big congregations of gulls, like at landfills or reservoirs, if you look hard enough, you can usually find one of these things in most parts of the East now. Neat bird. All right, so this is one you threw at me before we got started, Greg.
Yes, it is.
Warbler from Richfield, Minnesota.
So I chimed in on this bird last night while I was in bed looking at stuff on my phone. And
do that. The blue light is bad for you.
I know. And I kind of shot from the hip with a first impression, but also this is a really good fake out bird.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at a bird with a gray face, what looks like an eye ring, bold wing bars, and a bright green back.
Yeah, the image is sort of blown out around the face too, so you're not getting a ton of detail there.
And the tail is cocked.
Mm-hmm.
And first impression with this bird is chestnut-sided warbler.
I can see that.
And I cannot go over and look at what's this bird right now, but one of the people who commented, I believe from New York, a guy from New York, correctly identified this bird as a Perula warbler, northern Perula. And some people are like, wait, because we don't see any yellow on the throat. And it's when northern Perula is in its juvenile plumage, it's often mistaken, like when people find them and they're like, what do I do with this baby bird as a fledgling? They're often mistaken for mockingbirds and blue-gray gnatcatcher because they don't have any yellow on them. They have no yellow on them at all. And the adults, of course, have a lot of yellow underneath.
Yeah.
But in the other image that went along with this bird, it was pointed out that the tail pattern is spot on for northern Perula. And
this was the only image that was shown. And then in the comments, as per usual, frequently happens, people will throw in some other photos that they don't think are useful because they're bad photos. You can't see the face of the bird. All you see is its butt and undertail. And then that's good stuff for warblers. That's the good stuff.
Yeah. So this is a young northern Perula.
Yeah, and it's one of those images where the color, the saturation is a little bit high, and so we think of chestnut-sided warbler, yellow wing bars. You see the yellow wing bars, you've got a chestnut-sided warbler in fall. Well, I can see how you could maybe confuse this with some yellow wing bars, just because the saturation, the reflection off the leaves makes those white wing bars look a little bit yellow. Lemony.
Well, it's a double. There's when you look at a lot of pictures like this, it's easy to fake yourself out too when you're trying to interpret what you're looking at. And again, my first impression was I'm looking at that little yellow wash underneath as reflection from the leaves that it's kind of buried in, and everything else kind of being blown out, the whites being blown out and the grays being blown out. But anyway, that's so
remember, kids.
Oh, and one other thing
before you go to bed.
One other thing that also kind of one other thing that was hanging me up last night too, that's not noticed a lot when you're talking about IDing northern Perula, but it is when you're looking at them, is they have bicolored bills. The top mandible is black and the bottom is yellow. Yeah. And it's very noticeable. And this bird doesn't show
especially
that.
if one's way above you and you're looking up.
And this is looking up, and we can clearly see an orange bill. Underside of the bill. But this is a juvenile bird that doesn't have that yet.
Yeah. Oh, good note. All right, so let's move on to the other one that you threw at me before we got started, Greg. I actually really like this pair of images of what I assume are the same bird.
Yes, they are.
Accipiter identification, classic, one of the classic ID conundrums here in North America. I'll let you take this one too.
Okay, so the Coopers versus sharp-shinned hawk discussion has been going on and will go on forever. But the reason this one stood out for me is a couple of things. One, the overall build of this bird is nice, and it's slim and tubular. It doesn't have broad shoulders. It's kind of husky, or it's not husky at all. But the thing that stood out to me, and the reason that I wanted to talk about this one, is it's a really good example of something that we talk about a lot. It's hard to see, but when you do see it, you see it, and that is this kind of startled, googly-eyed impression of sharp-shinned hawk. And in the next image, I created a comp of these two photos compared with Cooper's hawks. And I can't see when that image is up, so let me know when that one's up. Yep. Okay. You can see it's subtle, but it's there. And totally. Look at the faces, look at the facial expressions of the birds, and the two sharp-shinned hawk pictures are in the middle with Cooper's on either side. Yeah. The Cooper's hawk is just a beefier bird, but it's got that kind of mean doing business.
Yeah, it's got a brow. It's got much more of a brow And
It's
yeah, it's a bird that's going to mess you up. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like a dragonfly just flew in its face. It was like,
no,
"Ugh."
no,
And um, so yeah, that's when we talk about sharp-shinned hawks being googly-eyed or have a startled expression, this is what we're talking about.
yeah, yeah, and that it's where the eye is positioned on the face and the proportion of the face that is taken up by the eye that sort of gives that impression. And
Hmm.
yeah, I like it. I especially like it because in the image that I showed before, a lot of people will gravitate towards the tail as a way to
Hmm.
identify these birds. For the classic, Sharpshin has the square tail. Cooper's has the square
Yep.
tail. Sharpshin
No,
has the rounded tail. And you can see in this
you got that
imagery, you can see the
backwards.
tail very well. Did I do it backwards? I thought I did it
Yeah,
both ways, and I can't remember. Cooper's is rounded.
rounded.
Sharpie is square. And you can see in this picture with the bird with the back to us, it looks like it has a rounded tail.
Yeah, not a lot of difference there in the tails.
No.
And the thing to remember there is that the Cooper's hawk, what gives the rounded appearance is that from the underside, the tail is graduated, and
Mm-hmm.
in so the outer tail feathers are a little bit shorter than the center tail feathers. And in sharp-shinned hawks, they are all the same size. But this assumes that the bird isn't molting, it's like when the feathers are fully grown,
Mm-hmm.
it's fairly apparent. But most of the time, most of the birds we see, especially young birds,
Yeah.
they're growing in their feathers, and it can sometimes be helpful, but relying on tail shape can be a pitfall.
Yeah. We have a comment on Periscope from Bill C. Wick. OMG, absolutely, the eye is crazy on the sharp shinned. Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah,
is. It's it's a surprise looking bird or a yeah, I don't know. It's like
it's subtle, but it's
like
there.
Biff Tannen in the Back to the Future movies where he's like kind of all the bright, wild-eyed, kind of crazy coming at you, sort of thing. Feel free to use that in your field guides, David Sibley.
Yep.
All right, I got another image of a passerine because it's passerine migration time. This one from Charlottesville, Virginia.
Hmm.
So what we're looking at here with that kind of overall green look and kind of a big, thick-based but still long bill, this is a tanager. And
Yes, it
so
is.
so once we've got it down to there, we can kind of think about whether it is a scarlet tanager or a summer tanager, both of which would be likely to be moving through right now.
Hmm. And well, a couple of things. One, this bird's just kind of overall greenish yellowish, and
Mm-hmm.
that includes the tail and the wing panels, what we
Yep.
can see. And also look at that big honking bill.
Big honking bill. Yeah, real long.
And yeah, this is a summer tanager. Scarlet tanager would have a smaller bill,
Mm-hmm.
probably darker too, but would show darker tail and a little more dark feathering on the wing panel.
Yeah, especially higher up on the wing. Obviously,
Yep.
the primaries and secondaries, the main flight feathers on the summer tanager are going to be darker than the
Right.
rest of the bird. That is an evolutionary advantage. Darker feathers are stronger than lighter feathers, so it makes sense. But on a summer tanager, that dark is going to be further up onto the shoulder, well, actually the wrist
Yep.
of the
Then the
bird.
coverts,
Yeah,
that are the shoulder and upper
precisely.
part of the wing.
Yeah, and also the shape is a little bit different too. We were talking about how shape is
is.
a useful tool for Coopers and Sharpshin talk. It is for Scarlet and Summer Tanager in a lot of the same way. I think of Summer Tanager as being much more lanky,
It
kind of
is.
longer, more Oriole-like almost.
Yep.
Whereas Scarlet Tanager is very compact, more like a
Yep.
Sharp-shinned hawk.
It is a smaller, compact, more compact
Yeah,
bird, definitely.
fluffy. Scarlet is more of a burb, whereas Summer is more of a bird. Again, Sibley, take those. Those are free. These are free for you. Yeah, so Summer Tanager in Charlottesville, Virginia, which for most of what I imagine in Virginia is the regular breeding bird. Here in North Carolina, the Scarlet Tanagers are pretty localized breeders in much of the Piedmont, but they get more common up in the higher elevations in the mountains. Here's another one. There's another warbler. We'll talk some passerines, similar in look to.
I haven't
the
seen
we
this
just
one
saw.
either.
Oh, I like this one actually because this is another species pair that people tend to have trouble with this time of year. This is from Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So, yeah, we talked about the pine warbler earlier before. So this has got a lot of similar characteristics to the pine warbler. It's got those real nice strong wing bars. It's got
Yep.
kind of all over, hard to tell the color on this one, but I would say kind of a beigey yellow kind of all over this bird, just based on the
Yep.
color of the green around it. But the bill is real small. It's got a small
Yep.
bill. So it's not a pine warbler. So the
No.
other two very similar birds are Blackpool and
And
bay-breasted
bay-breasted.
warbler.
And so, which do you think this is, Nate, and why?
I think this is a bay-breasted for a couple reasons. One, very smooth all over, very concolorous all over the breast and the side of the body. When I see a Blackpool, I typically see at least some streaking on there. It's very thin, sometimes very subtle, but in a photo like this, even though it's not the greatest, you still would be able to see the color difference between the streak and the bird next to it. This one does not have that. And also, man, those wing bars are loud. They are out there. They are clean. They are sharp. And when I think of a bay-breasted warbler in fall, those wing bars are like, they are in your face.
That's exactly what I was going to point out if you hadn't hit it. Yeah, those wing bars are, like you say, in your face. It's a bay-breasted warbler.
Yeah. And time of year and location is actually a pretty good clue for a lot of these birds as well. Maybe not in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, where you are likely to see probably both of them about the same time of year. But as you get further south, what we know about Blackpool warbler fall migration is that they kind of migrate southeast till they get to the coast of the mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva Peninsula, between New England and the Delmarva Peninsula thereabouts. And then they just jump off and fly over the ocean all the way down to South America. So what that means for birders is that if you are a birder on the coast in the southeast, you are more likely to see a Blackpool warbler than a bay-breasted warbler. Not always, but generally speaking. And if you are a birder in the mountains, in the Appalachians, you're more likely to see a bay-breasted warbler. And in fact, Blackpool warbler is quite uncommon, that far west in the interior of the continent, Appalachians west.
Yep.
And actually, there's a period, speaking for North Carolina.
I mean, we get in the Great Lakes, we get both of them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'd say, we definitely, I would just anecdotally, it feels like we get more Blackpolls. But when we get bay-breasted, we get them.
Yeah. See, down here, Blackpool is a pretty good bird in the Piedmont. And there's a period of maybe a week to 10 days in September, right about now, mid-September, into late September, where bay-breasted can be one of the most common birds in the mountains. If you go out and drive the Blue Ridge Parkway and find warbler flocks, there's a lot of bay-breasteds in there. And someone else pointed out on Periscope, thank you, Anuas Birding. Oh, it's Stu McKenzie, a friend from Ontario. He notes the gray legs. I didn't point that out because it's actually kind of hard to see, but I guess, you might be able to see the gray feet on this guy. And I do think this is a adult male, but Blackpool would have, would be lighter. Might be able to make it out against this gray branch a little bit easier. Yeah, shall we move on? We're on a roll.
Let's move on.
This is another one you sent me. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this one because
this one,
I don't know if I agree with you, Greg. But
really,
I don't know.
Okay,
it's weird. This is a weird bird. This bird gives me odd feelings.
Okay, so here's it gave me odd feelings too.
Tell me your thoughts. From Hesperia, California.
Yeah, so I was also later at night in bed scrolling through, and this bird popped up, and I looked at it, and the first thing I did was I jumped out of bed, I ran in my office, walked in my office, and I grabbed my field guide to the birds of East Asia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks kind of like an Emberiza.
It looks like one of the buntings.
Yeah.
And the streaking on the back is what really threw me. Then that coupled with that face pattern, And there's a third picture of this bird that is straight back, and it looks
Yes,
like it has a nice crest popped up.
correct.
Um, and I looked at it some more. Uh, and started just kind of backing off my initial impression, and focusing on what we can actually see here.
I'm gonna
And
grab a Sibley. Hold on.
so what we can see here is a pretty, we can see an eye ring for certain. We can see that the supercilium is very indistinct,
Yeah.
but the auricular is nicely framed. And the boldest part of the face is that malar stripe, that mustache stripe. But other things we can see is that the upper wing bar has a little bit of juice going on there. But looking closely, we can see white outer tail feathers in every picture. Yes.
Can we though?
Yes, look up in the shadow under
right.
the wing and how the white edge continues all the way up into the body. So that's what nailed it as Vesper Sparrow for me. Plus the bill is kind of thin for a song sparrow, if that's where you're going with this.
Allow me to make my point.
Yes, go ahead, because
This is in California, so
yes.
there's a lot of subspecies of stuff out there that is a little bit different than what I see in the East. So my first impression with this was Savannah Sparrow. Because the bill is small, it's real busy in the face. I think of Vesper as like really very plain faced. And I'm looking at my Sibley here, and it says that some western populations of Savannah have white outer tail feathers.
But what about that eye ring?
I
mean, that eye ring
Savannah has more of an eye ring than people give it credit for. A little bit.
That eye ring is really kind of standing out to me, and I could.
No, I'll give you that. I don't disagree with anything you said as far as the pointing out the field marks, but
and one other thing too is, and again, I mean, the pictures are not, they're not super sharp, so
yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell what's going on in some things, but the Savannah tends to have bright pink legs too, and this bird doesn't.
All right, fair.
It just,
I don't know, man. That's what I'm just saying. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, if there were other pictures that came back and this was a, juvenile, and this is a discussion we had last year, about a similar bird, that was in Canada, I think Eastern Canada, that turned out to be a juvenile, Savannah sparrow.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't look like this bird in my memory. Typically Savannah sparrow, by the time that malar gets nice and white, the eyebrow, the malar and the eyebrow are kind of the same. They frame the face, and this bird is like, holy malar, Batman, and there's really not much else going on up there except for the dark frame around the auricular.
I see. I mean, I see all that. I was like, I have been fooled by Western subspecies of birds.
Yeah,
like and pretty frequently. I don't know how the California birders do it, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it would not shock me to get, as you say, like to get photos that would show this more as an unequivocal.
Brian Murphy over on my feed says Merlin comes back Savannah most of the time. Like, we really care what Merlin thinks.
Drew Weber, if you're listening. Yeah. Anyway, identifying birds from photos is hard.
It is hard. It is really hard.
If anyone has any questions about birds that we've seen or anything else, please let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to tackle them to the best of our ability. And I don't see anything on any of our places, but feel free to start throwing them at us because, let's see, we've been at this for almost 50 minutes now. Well, not quite 50 minutes, but it just flew by.
My feed is quiet. Usually there's people chatting away, but I don't see anything in my feed.
No one wants to throw us anything. Anyway, let's see what else we got. I don't really have anything else, and I don't have any comments. So if
The
you
only comment I have is that if you enjoy listening to us banter and every other Friday, and if you like the things we do, such as What's This Bird and the ABA website
and
and
who
Birding
doesn't?
Magazine and all the other things we do, please consider joining the ABA. Go to aba.org/join. Most of the stuff we do, we offer up free for you, and being a member helps us keep doing all of this stuff.
Yeah. Um,
Ha! Madagleski says, I vote Savannah, as if we actually care what Madagleski says.
yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt. I was gonna throw up the website, but it's not my. Oh, I know what's happening. My Bluetooth keyboard is losing power. Hold on.
this would
All
be a
these
good little
things.
quiet time to mention that if you are interested in learning bird songs, get yourself Larkwire.
Thank you, Jenny Shockley, for putting
Go,
the.
go to larkwire.com.
It's expensive for an app, but it's absolutely worth it. I actually had
It
the
is.
occasion to introduce someone to Larkwire just the other day. I have a friend of mine from college who is not a birder, whose family just relocated. Her husband's in the military, and they relocated to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And not only am I incredibly jealous that they are going to be in one of the most amazing places for birding on the
Oh,
continent.
especially this year. Holy
Yeah, right.
mackerel.
So I have been introducing her to iNaturalist and Merlin and all and Larkwire, and the question came up like, how do you learn bird identifications? And I mentioned Larkwire among other things. Peter Miller asks, "What are your favorite non-ABA Facebook pages?" I assume he means with birds.
Well, there's the Advanced ID group, which is not affiliated with the ABA, but is run by some ABA people.
Yeah,
That's a really good one. It's very strictly curated, and the discussions there are intense and good. You can learn a lot of stuff from that.
yeah.
Um,
I maintain a couple for my for my state, Carolina Birds. We have a Carolina. It's basically a mirror of everything that we do. Um, for here for the ABA, it's like a Carolina Birds, Rare Bird, Carolina Rare Birds, Carolina ID group, stuff like that. So, um, yeah, that's usually where I go to.
and
Um,
some of the ones that are fun, whether or not they're actually actionable, but they're just fun to follow. Meaning, most of us wouldn't have a need to or a reason to chime in, but some of the RBA pages. So there's like the Alaska Rare Bird Alert, Florida Rarities, Texas Chase Birds, Arizona. I think there's an Arizona Rarities. Those are fun to watch because there's all kinds of just really neat, wacky birds that show up in those groups.
Yeah, and I'm also a member of a lot of other groups that are for different taxa as well. There's some good bug identification groups, mushroom identification groups. Most of us are not just birders; we're kind of general naturalists in addition to being birders. And I don't know those things as well as I know birds, so I frequently need a little
Yes,
bit of help too.
absolutely. And if you want to, there's also some really fun deep dive groups. For instance, search up the Junco Complex, and where all we do is discuss Juncos.
Oh yeah, and Marcia Balestri notes Birdcast as well, which is fantastic this time of year. And
Mm-hmm.
not
Absolutely.
a Facebook group, although they do have a
It's a
Facebook
it's
presence, but it is a website, birdcast.info. It's one of Cornell Lab of Ornithology's things.
yeah.
She also asks, she has a hard time finding out whether we are on or not. Is there a way to get a notification when this will be on? We try to do this every other week between 1 and 1:30. We should probably be better about
Eastern on
letting
Fridays.
Eastern, yeah, on Fridays. We should probably be better about letting people know about that. Sorry,
Yeah,
we'll try to be
we
better.
tend to put a notice up, try to get it like a half hour or an hour before.
Yeah.
but there are occasions where one or the other of us can't do it, and we'll just have to skip that week and just let it slide. But every other Friday around 1:30 Eastern is when we're here.
At Forrest Gump on Periscope asks, "Is birding a sport or a hobby?"
Yes,
Exactly.
it's also a way of life.
Yeah, it's really more of it's a lifestyle. Yeah, Chris Ortega notes you can get a notification if you follow the American Birding Association Facebook profile. Yes, I try and post those announcements using the ABA page, the ABA profile. Yep. And so if you follow that on the What's the Spurred group, it will pop up and maybe give you a notification, or at least theoretically it should. At Bill C. Wick asks, "How do I send you guys bird photos?" Join the What's the Spurred Facebook group.
Absolutely.
Hashtag What's the Spurred, or you can hit us on Twitter at ABA. Another good place. We'd be happy to help you there. Oh, any other questions? Beep, 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 beep. Oh, Steve or Marianne Selland S lives on the central coast of California, just starting to try and learn about bird ID. Where do you suggest I start? Buying books, watching us, but what else? Well, watching us obviously is going to set you in the right direction. Just hopefully you won't see any weird sparrows in California.
Get out in the field and just start doing it. Keep a book in the car. You can carry a field guide with you if you want, but what happens is a lot of times you will wind up looking down at the book rather than up at things around you. Mm-hmm. And go out and find a bird that you don't know what it is and spend some time looking at it and then work out what it is. And I mean, this sounds like, oh, of course, that's what you do, but you'd be surprised how many people go out with a book in their pocket and binoculars or a camera. And they oh, there's the bird, pull out the book and look, oh, hell, it's gone. And spend time with the bird.
Yeah, spend time with the bird in the field, spend time with the book at home. That's always a good clue. I think of my bird books as being things that I have, that I keep at home, on the coffee table, in the bathroom where you're likely to pick it up, just and page through it, know where everything is, kind of get a general idea of what you're looking for, and then it's going to be a lot easier to recognize the things when you see them in the field. As far as books go, Alvaro Jaramillo has the ABA Field Guide to Birds of California is probably a pretty good place to start. It's a field guide with 300 odd species that are fairly regularly the ones that you kind of regularly interact with in California. California's a huge state, so it's difficult to narrow that down to 300, considering the Northern California and Central California and Southern California are also different. But he does a nice job. And then, pick up a field guide to Western birds, Sibley or Peterson or whatever you prefer, National Geographic, whatever. There's a lot of really good ones. The best field guide is the one you're going to use, and kind of use those together to get an idea of what you're going to see. But those are books that I would say. I have a copy of Al's book somewhere around here, probably downstairs, but it's a real nice one. All the birds,
there might be one on my bookcase back there behind me.
Yeah, they are. All those books are actually real nice.
Yeah, they're very good. If you're just beginning, it's a very good introduction to your local birds. If you buy your state guide.
Yeah, and I would also, any other normal year, I would suggest looking for a local bird club and checking out when they do bird walks. And I think some clubs are actually sort of wading back into that pool.
Yep.
Outdoors is relatively safe from COVID, providing you abide by appropriate precautions like masks and social distancing. But you can sort of bird with people that way. So look for local bird clubs. Maybe they're doing some small walks that you can take part in.
And if you go to the ABA website under resources on our main menu, you will find a listing of bird clubs around the ABA area, the United States and Canada. And we try to keep it as complete and up to date as possible. But there's a lot of clubs there, and you link to them and join up with them and go out birding.
Yeah, Jenny Shockley says a trick that she used when she graduated from backyard birding to location birding was to check eBird lists for the places I wanted to go and study those birds on others' lists and then go out and explore. That's a great clue. That's back when I started birding, that was not available. But now, eBird is such an amazing resource, and using it the way that you're using it, Jenny, is actually a really great way. Um, you get one of those field guides. You get a field guide to North America or the ABA area or whatever, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed by the number of
It
birds that
is.
you have available to you. And any way that you can use to kind of shorten that list into something more manageable by location, by time of year, by whatever is going to be really helpful. Don't
Absolutely.
don't get overwhelmed. In any time you go out, just about anywhere in on the continent north of Mexico, you're likely to encounter 30 to 40 species of birds, and know those birds, and then go from there.
And you're going to have to help me with the name of the book, but we've mentioned David Sibley a few times. Uh,
He's going to use all
David
my tips.
has David has a wonderful little book that everybody should keep by their bed and just read a little bit whenever you feel like it. It's birding basics, I think.
Sibley birding
Uh,
basics. Yeah.
Sibley birding basics, and it's a small book, but he really does a good job of in a small number of pages, really explaining like what it's all about and how to go about it, what
Yeah.
what to do when you're out there looking at birds.
Yeah, and I'll also take the opportunity to plug my own book along those lines as well. I've wrote one called
Oh, that's
Beginner's Guide to
right.
Birding.
You wrote one
Yeah, a
too.
few years ago. My publisher would be very angry with me if they knew. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that as well. I don't have it on my bookshelf. It's on my bookshelf downstairs, not my one
I
upstairs.
have it on my
Yeah,
bookshelf.
yeah. Thanks, Greg. Thanks.
Yeah,
David
well,
Sibley doesn't need any more help. Think about the
yeah,
little
you're
guy.
right. Whoops.
Yeah, but there's a lot. But the point is, there's a lot of really good resources out there for kind of leading you down that path. And those are all good places to
Get
start.
Nate's book.
My children need to eat.
Yeah. Look, look at how he has. I mean, he's got to do this from their bedrooms. So I mean,
right.
come on, yeah, buy his book, help
my
him
book.
out.
Yeah, help me out.
He threw the kids out in the yard in the rain so he could do this.
I know it's a beautiful day today. But,
I'm
anyway,
helping you.
all right. So we've been at this for about an hour. So I will. I think it's about time to call it
Yep.
a week. We'll be back in a couple weeks around this very same time. Hopefully, we'll see you then. Oh wait, quick! We have one last question.
Oh, no.
Kenneth,
Oh, no.
you jumped me in. You jumped in. Kenneth Kunkel asks, "What are the best?" Yeah, people are asking about my book. I'll put it in there. Hold on just a second. I got to answer this question. Kenneth Kunkel, what are the best case uses for scope versus binoculars? When do you use one versus the other? Greg, take it so I can put my book in the.
Go
in
get
the
your book.
comments. Yeah.
Scopes, water birding. That's if you want it just plain and simple. Water birding, shore birding, places where you can't get close enough. Especially in a lot of places where shorebirds on the beach, if you stand still, shorebirds will walk right up to you. But in a lot of places, tidal flats and stuff, the birds are hundreds of yards away, and you need a scope. Hawk watching, use a scope. Scan the sky with binoculars. Find that little dot way out there. Get it in your scope and follow that bird in your scope until it's too close to follow anymore, and then switch back to binoculars. And you'll get a really good experience of learning those birds that way. Interestingly, tropical guides use scopes a lot to pick out birds way up in the treetops. And I've done that too, and especially on big sits and big days where we have places where we can scan a tree line early in the morning and use your scope and just go along the top of a distant tree line, and you'll find hawks and things that roosted overnight that you just wouldn't notice otherwise, and they're just kind of sitting up there minding their own business, and you wouldn't see them naked eye, and you probably wouldn't pick them out with binoculars.
Yeah, any open country birding, definitely a scope. Farm fields, pastures, grasslands, sea watching, lake watching, any of that stuff, you're going to want to use a scope. It's definitely better. Everyone else, you use binoculars.
And one thing I will say, and this came up this morning. I was talking with a friend of mine who was out looking at gulls on the Sabin's gull, a Sabin's gull on Lake Michigan yesterday. Um, I'm not going to mention brands because we don't do that here. But he had brand A, and the person next to him had brand B, and they were both looking for the same bird. And brand B, he was able to get on the bird and see it. And this person with brand A, model A, couldn't see it. They're standing next to each other, both looking through scopes.
Yeah.
Bird was very distant. But the lesson here is don't skimp on a scope.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
you can get by with binoculars starting at a couple $100 and they'll service you perfectly fine. And yes, as you spend more money, you will get better binoculars, but it's not a night and day difference the way it is with a scope.
I totally agree with that. It's the bigger piece of glass so that the imperfections stand out more.
It is.
And if you're going to have a big piece of glass, 65, 85 millimeters across, you're going to want something that is as good a quality as you can possibly get.
But, if you're tempted to, pick up that scope for a few $100s and think, oh, this is my starter scope, don't. Just keep saving your money and until it's something worth like really, throwing some money into.
Yep, I would agree with that. All right, so we are over an hour now. My goodness. So
Yeah.
we're gonna say goodnight.
Where's your book?
It's downstairs. I put it on in the comments. I put it in the comments.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I thought I had one. No, I don't see it. It's in there. I don't see it though. What's going on there?
It says Stu McKenzie just sent a picture to the Twitter feed. That is that's a really interesting bird. I'll just
Okay, I'm going to Twitter.
Yeah. So Alex Jones. Okay. So people are putting birds on Twitter. All right. We can try. Here, I can throw it up. Have a look at it. It's not a native bird. I'll just say that. I don't know if that helps you, Stu.
I don't see it. Well, I won't be able to see that.
It's a response to the post on Twitter of our feed. Anyway, I just threw it up there.
Oh, I see. Stu McKenzie.
Yeah, it's like one of those East Asian finches is what it looks like, and it's some sort of Asian finch. But I don't know off the top of my head. Black lark?
Huh.
I don't know what it is. It's a brain bird.
I'm gonna have to look at this more.
It's either a really, really screwy plumaged something or an escapee or something really good. Those are your three options. I don't know. We'll have to take a look at it. We'll have a look at it after we get off. Because I'll have to just research on that one too.
And Alex Jones, we'll get to that bird on Twitter as well.
Yep. Anyway, I'm gonna call it a whatever, and we'll see y'all. It's from Stu's in Ontario, so that's where the picture was taken, Jenny.
Yep.
Yeah. So Central Canada, East Central Canada. All right. So we'll check those on Twitter, and otherwise we'll see y'all when we see you. See you next time.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Good to see you guys. aba.org/join. Thanks.